Hey everybody, it's Minius, and the Mass Effect Legendary Edition is set to come out on May 14th of this year. It is just a simple remaster of the original trilogy, but this release is a good move for the franchise. In fact, it might be the smartest possible thing they can do for Mass Effect right now. You often see remasters or re-releases criticized as money grabs, and that criticism does apply to each release, to varying degrees. Although any game or any piece of entertainment, or anything really where people invest 8+ figures into it, is done with the purpose of making money, but the Legendary Edition has long-term benefits to the Mass Effect franchise, which is being continued. It's not a coincidence that the remaster was officially announced at the same time a new Mass Effect game was announced. We don't really know much about that new game, but it is clear that there are plans for the franchise moving forward, and at the moment, the Mass Effect franchise isn't in the best possible spot.
This is not good.
Whatever you felt about Mass Effect Andromeda isn't really relevant. The most recent entry in the series didn't click with the gaming community the same way the previous games did. And those previous games, obviously, are the target of this new release. Pushing new life into those old games is a good way to re-energize the core fanbase of the series. Now, I'm sure more than a few of you watching have replayed the trilogy somewhat recently, but it will have been more than 9 years since the release of Mass Effect 3 when the Legendary Edition comes out, and it's been a while for a lot of people. The remaster is a good excuse to get people who enjoyed the first games to dive back in and remember why they liked the series in the first place. Bottom line, it's going to inject energy into the fan base that didn't have a lot going for it at this time last year. It's also a good opportunity to show Electronic Arts that the series is worth legitimately investing in. We don't have the actual financial numbers on Mass Effect Andromeda. I've seen guesses all over the place, but I always felt the game felt half-finished and underfunded. It was buggy at launch, but more importantly, the story seems short and incomplete, and the relationships you have with characters are a bit unbalanced as far as how much you can interact with who, especially when compared to the trilogy. The recent news that the original Andromeda had plans for more aliens and a more in-depth look at alien species, but those ideas were cut due to budgetary reasons backs up the theory that the game was underfunded. Even with its issues, I don't think anyone can argue that Mass Effect Andromeda wouldn't have benefited greatly from another 3 to 6 months of polishing. That of course takes money, and that money wasn't spent. Any new Mass Effect game is going to need some cash behind it to match up with current AAA releases and to the original trilogy. If this Legendary Edition sells well, that might convince EA to back the new game better financially. The fact that this remaster even exists in the first place is a good sign that interest from the publisher to make this work is still there. And on a somewhat related note, after years of multiplayer-focused releases, Electronic Arts published their first real solid single-player game in years in Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, which hopefully signals that EA is open to spending on single-player games again. Another important thing, this series is probably older than you think. I mentioned Mass Effect 3 was released 9 years ago. The original Mass Effect was released 13.5 years ago. There will be people entering high school this upcoming year who weren't alive when the first game was released. Needless to say, there are a bunch of potential Mass Effect fans out there who literally haven't played the series yet, just because they missed the window of the series' popularity. The Legendary Edition puts the trilogy back in the spotlight and gives another generation of gamers an excuse to jump in for the first time. These games are good. Many people are going to find that they like them. And increasing the fan base for Mass Effect is important for the franchise moving forward. Of course, everything isn't perfect with this re-release. Already we've had a really dumb controversy, literally about butts, and you can make the case that the previous Mass Effect game was sunk by internet negativity in the weeks leading up to and the weeks after its release. Yeah, the game had issues, but never really had a chance. But at the moment, I can't see any EA BioWare game getting positive buzz heading into a release, something that games often need to get off the ground. And in fairness to the people pushing that negative narrative, the Electronic Arts BioWare combination hasn't done anything to get people excited in recent years. Andromeda may have had issues, but Anthem had more. At this point, there's only one way to turn that around: by putting out good games. There's nothing else that's going to turn around gamers' attitudes towards the studio. There's nothing they can say, there's nothing they can show, there are no new projects they can announce, and there's nobody they can hire to turn around the internet negativity at this point. They just haven't produced enough good stuff in the last half-decade to have the reputation for that. Releasing good games is the only thing that's going to do it. The Mass Effect trilogy is made up of good games, some of the best of all time. It's a damn good place to start if you want to turn things around. Of course, we won't see if they succeed until they release it, but even if you aren't planning on buying the Legendary Edition, it's something all Mass Effect fans should see as a positive going forward, and definitely something worth keeping an eye on. As for me, I should have more Mass Effect videos coming out leading up to the remaster, but for now...
I should go.